Around the year 1177 BC, the most connected, advanced world the planet had ever seen was on fire. Within roughly one human lifetime, nearly every great power of the Eastern Mediterranean, kingdoms that had stood for centuries, collapsed. Cities burned and were never rebuilt. Entire writing systems were forgotten. Trade routes that had moved gold, tin, and ideas for generations simply went dark. This wasn't the fall of a single empire. It was the fall of an entire interconnected civilization. Mycenaean Greece, the Hittite Empire, the great cities of the Levant, almost all at once. And here's the part that should unsettle you. After more than a century of study, we still don't fully agree on why. This is the closest the ancient world ever came to a true apocalypse. Let me show you the world that fell, and the most convincing explanation for how it happened so fast. To understand the collapse, you have to understand how sophisticated this world was. Because we tend to imagine ancient as primitive, and this was anything but. By around 1250 BC, the Eastern Mediterranean was a network of superpowers. Egypt's new kingdom, the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, Mycenaean Greece, the wealthy trading kingdoms of the Levant, like the city of Ugarit. They were linked by something genuinely modern, international trade and diplomacy. We have their letters. Kings called each other brother. They negotiated marriages, sent lavish gifts, complained about late shipments. There was a globalized economy, and it had a critical weakness. The age is named for bronze, and bronze is an alloy, copper plus tin. Copper was around, but tin had to be imported from far away, sometimes thousands of miles. Every weapon, every tool, every symbol of power depended on a long, fragile supply chain stretching across the whole known world. So picture it, a tightly connected system, enormously prosperous, but utterly dependent on everyone else staying stable. When systems are that interconnected, a shock doesn't stay local. It cascades. The most famous culprit has a dramatic name: the Sea Peoples. Egyptian records describe waves of sea-born invaders attacking the coast. Pharaoh Ramesses III claims to have fought them off around 1177 BC and tells us that before they reached Egypt, they had already destroyed the Hittites, Cyprus, and the cities of the Levant. For a long time, this was the whole story. Mysterious raiders swept in and burned everything down. But modern historians have a problem with that. Who were the Sea Peoples? Where did they come from? And why were they on the move at all? Here's a chilling piece of evidence. In the ruins of Ugarit, archaeologists found clay tablets, including letters that were never sent, baked hard by the fire that destroyed the city. One pleads for help. Enemy ships have been sighted. The city's own forces are away. The country is defenseless. Ugarit was burned and never reoccupied. We are reading the last words of a dying city, and it kept happening. Across roughly 50 years, the great centers fell in a cluster. The Mycenaean palaces burned. The Hittite capital was abandoned. Cyprus, the Levant, the Aegean. Collapse after collapse, packed into a few decades. What followed was a genuine dark age. In Greece, the art of writing was lost. The Mycenaean script vanishes, and Greeks would be illiterate for centuries. Populations crashed. The lights, quite literally, went out. So, was it the Sea Peoples? Here's where the modern understanding gets more interesting and more relevant to us. The leading view today isn't a single villain, it's a cascade. Several disasters hitting an over-connected system at the same time. First, climate. Scientific evidence, from ancient pollen, sediment cores, and other records, points to a severe, prolonged drought across the Eastern Mediterranean in exactly this period. Crops failed. Famine set in. Some of those invaders may have been ordinary people fleeing starvation, looking for anywhere that still had food. Second, earthquakes. Archaeologists have found signs that a series of earthquakes, what some call an earthquake storm, struck the region around this time, damaging cities already under strain. Third, and most important, interconnection itself. Remember the tin. Remember the trade lines holding everything together. Now pull a few threads at once. Drought here, an earthquake there, a wave of desperate migrants, a broken trade route, and watch what happens. One kingdom falls, which breaks the trade its neighbor depended on, which weakens that kingdom, which breaks the next. The very connectivity that made this world rich is what let the failure spread. That's the modern thesis, and it's why this 3,000-year-old story keeps getting retold today. The Bronze Age world didn't fall because one enemy was strong. It fell because the system was fragile in a way no single kingdom could see. Too connected, too dependent, too optimized for a world that stayed stable. When several shocks landed together, there was no slack left to absorb them. For centuries afterward, people lived in the shadow of these ruins without knowing who had built them. The Greeks would later look back at the Mycenaean walls and assume only giants could have raised them. The memory of the civilization had decayed into myth. I'll let you decide how much it rhymes with now. A deeply interconnected world. Prosperity built on long, fragile supply chains. A climate shock layered on top of human conflict. The Bronze Age collapse is studied so intensely today not because it's distant, but because, structurally, it feels uncomfortably familiar. The people of 1177 BC didn't know they were living at the end of an age. They thought their world was permanent, too big, too rich, too connected to fall. Then, within a lifetime, almost all of it was gone, and the survivors couldn't even remember how it had worked. That's the quiet catastrophe. Not just that a world ended, but that it ended so completely, the next world forgot it ever existed. If you want another disaster the textbooks rush past, next time, the true 18 hours of Pompeii, reconstructed step by step. I'll see you there.